I got punched under my jaw. I got multiple bruising down my leg. I had multiple bruising down this arm. I did have bruising on the rest of my body, on my back. They need to be detained, processed and deported. But, you know, this is bigger than reform. What's going on in this country is bigger than reform. They're saying that my crime was to unfurl the flag. There is quite clearly a two-tier system in this country.
Evening everybody, welcome. First episode of Cup of Tea with Right Nor Left Reggie. Today we've got the fantastic guest Sarah White for the first episode. How you doing?
I'm good, Reggie, and you know what? I'm so privileged that I'm your first guest.
That's alright.
It means so much.
I'd have to bring out the Epin-Line-S for you.
Thank you.
So let's just get straight into it. Obviously, you've had a great just rocket just shooting up with your popularity and what's going on with your life. What was life like when you was younger? How was it in the streets? Because obviously you grew up in East London. What was it like?
So originally I'm from East London, and then my dad was a publican, my mum was a market trader, so I don't think you could get any more East End than that, to be honest. And then my mum decided she didn't want me to grow up in the East End and went to my dad one day, right, I want to move. I don't want to be brought up around here, because they could see a change even then. And he said, all right, where do you want to go? And she said, Devon. Of all places. We went to a place called Bideford. And then we wasn't there that long. They'd opened a shop and it was called Que Sera. And my mum used to buy the latest fashions in London once a month, take them back down to Devon and sell them. And they done really well. But then my mum turned up one day after returning from London and said to me, Dad, I don't want to live here anymore. And he was like, okay, where do you want to go? So they chose to go to Malden, because my nan and granddad had just moved out of the East End and moved to Malden. And I had a great childhood. Like, I couldn't have been loved any more than I was. Like, my mum and dad, I wasn't spoilt, but I was spoilt with love. And I've always had that fight in me where I wanted to stand up for anyone that had an injustice against them. So that kind of has progressed through my life and made me who I am now. But my mum, even though we lived in Malden, we still went to Roman Road Market 3 days a week. She had a market stall there. My nan had had a stall there for like 50 years. So even though I went to school in Malden, I didn't go to school that often.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was always in the markets, and I felt like that kind of was my childhood. My schooling was being educated in life, because I think you get such a good education through your parents and through being in somewhere like markets. Growing up in an East End market, I think it gives you a good guide of what life is really like. You meet so many different people. So, but then when I was 15, my mum and dad got divorced, and that was then I moved back and went to Canning Town, and then lived there for quite a few years until I ended up going to Chigwell, where I live now.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, my dad grew up in East London. He grew up in Canning Town as well. And he says to me, when everyone was out, you used to just say, "Oh look, Mum, I'm going out at 11 o'clock in the morning." They wouldn't hear from you till about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night when you walked through the door.
Yeah.
And they'd say everyone's doors was open. There was nothing really that was going wrong.
Yeah.
Everyone was happy, living their life. Do you agree with that? Do you think
100%.
back in the days it was life was beautiful?
100% agree with that. I couldn't agree more. And Canning Town as well was one of the last places really to change. It was still had that real kind of rough East London. It was a predominantly white area. It hadn't had the multicultural hadn't taken over in that area. I don't mind. It's not about being racist. I don't mind having obviously from Stepney originally, which has got a more of a high percentage of people from different backgrounds, especially Muslim. But yeah, I think Canning Town was one of them places that, I mean...
It was one of the last ones.
One of the last places to really change. And it really did have that proper East End feel about it. Like, the kids was always just running around in the streets.
Yeah.
Like, I used to love being around there. It was nice.
And
it was a nice place.
Nowadays, you rarely see a kid having fun on the streets. It's always kids with balaclavas on, looking at when they can mug someone, looking at when they can rob someone. It's not fair. It's not safe for kids to walk out on these streets anymore.
No.
Sorry, but the governments have failed us and local councils have failed us with putting zero police presence on these streets. And you mentioned education. I've gone for education mainly. I'm in my last year at school now. The education system has completely changed. You very rarely learn about something that happened in the 1900s, like World War One, World War Two, Magna Carta, Henry VIII. You rarely learn about that, and that put me off taking history for a GCSE. So I didn't, and now I've took other lessons, and I just think it's just boring at school. You've got teachers. One teacher, I'm not going to mention names, said, "Glad Charlie Kirk's dead. I hope his family join him." And that just shows sort of what these teachers are like in this education system. It's not fair for kids to go into education like this. Do you agree? 100%
agree. And the thing is, I noticed a change in my education. How teachers were slowly changing. I think I was probably, people my age are probably one of the last generations that actually it was still quite normal in schools. But having children now, and I mean, I've got children at the same age as you and older than you, and once they was at school, oh my God, what a change. I mean, I think we should all learn about different cultures and different backgrounds 100%. And different countries and religions. However, when it's just following one narrative and when they don't like children to debate, the beauty, 100%. Especially in this country, it was always the art of debate. Like, you know, having debate was such a good thing that we could openly talk about, I might like this and you might not, but we could come to maybe, you know, say, all right, I agree with that, you don't, and it's fine. But now it seems as if you've got one viewpoint, especially in a school, you're persecuted for that, or you're not allowed to have an opinion.
Because I don't know if you know, but I was actually suspended from school for saying kids under the age of 18 who changed their gender are mentally ill. I was given a detention for wearing my reform badge last year, 2024, when it was general election campaign. So they just want to shut kids down nowadays. They don't want kids to have an opinion and stuff. And mentioning reform, you obviously have defected to Advance from reform. Why did you make that choice?
It was a long process. So I had originally joined Reform, as you know, it was probably about a year ago, and just kind of ended up signing myself up to become a candidate because there wasn't a candidate for my area. So I thought, you know what, if there's no one else, I'll do it. I might not necessarily be the best candidate, but I'm a candidate and at least there's someone. And got into it, and I really enjoyed getting into politics. Yeah. I think a lot of people have over the last few years.
It's an interesting thing, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people you're seeing now get involved in politics that once would have just had their opinion and that would have been it. So I joined Reform and I thought they was the party to save this country. However, over the last year, I noticed that they wasn't once what I signed up to, and I believe they're not what other people signed up to. I don't think I'm the only person with this opinion. And when you've got someone saying to you, take down the Tommy Robinson posts or you'll be dropped, well, that's not democracy and that's not freedom of speech, because at the end of the day, whether you like Tommy Robinson or not, credit where credit's due, he's done some amazing things. Yeah. So, and I think Nigel should have embraced that, and even if he didn't like him, he should have gone, well, hold on, he's got a big following. He has done some really good things. He's made the grooming gang scandal, he's made it more into the public than anybody else. And why would he not kind of welcome him on board? And so there was that was an issue. Then there was the issue where, you know, Ben Habib had left the party. Then there was obviously Rupert Lowe was pushed out of the party. And what I noticed was that Nigel wasn't liking anybody else that got any sort of publicity.
Yes.
So, you know, if you really, really care about this country, you'll put your ego aside and you'll do whatever it takes to make this country great.
And one more thing, obviously, I went to the one in, I think it was January or February 2024, Tommy Robinson March. I think it was around then last year. And Tommy Robinson was so supportive of reform, saying, "Oh look, if you're going to vote Reform, put your hand up," and literally the whole crowd put their hand up. And I noticed this year it had nothing to do with Reform. It was Advance. It was just Advance. So I'm feeling that Farage has turned on Tommy Robinson because he's a criminal. Doesn't want that in his party. Doesn't want that from the media to outright Reform as criminals. And then he's realised that Advance actually care for the people, sort of. And I feel like Tommy Robinson has moved to support Advance. And obviously you defected to Advance. And obviously you met Nigel Farage in the Reform Party, obviously.
Yes.
Do you think Farage is really patriotic as what people make him?
I don't think so. I think you can be patriotic, but when you care more about your own ego than you do about the country, then are you completely sincere? And that's the difference with Ben Habib. He cares so much about this country. He's incredibly patriotic. And so, okay, I can't sit here and go, Nigel isn't patriotic. But what Nigel is someone who showboats and cares more about a photo opportunity. If you speak to people in Clacton, they're incredibly annoyed because he'll turn up, have a photo and leave. A lot of people say that they don't see him down there. He doesn't really care. He's got his seat and that's it. If I was in power, people know I'm patriotic. People know that I would put others before myself. And I just believe, and from what I've seen for myself, is that Nigel doesn't want anyone outshining him. So, the minute Rupert Lowe started speaking out about the real issues are people want to know, how are you going to deport all of these, like the excessive amount of undocumented illegal men that are breaking into our country? How are you going to deport them? What is going to be the policy? He didn't like it because all of a sudden someone's speaking out, and Nigel seems to flip and flap and choose, well, I've gone on that's what the public want. Now I've got their vote, I'm backtracking. And what really, really annoyed me, and I'd already decided to leave Reform by this point anyway, but I'd gone along to their conference because, one, I'd already booked a hotel and I already had my ticket. And I thought, you know what, I'll go for the first day. Yeah. I was in there for 5 minutes and I walked straight out. Really? And I walked straight into the bar and then spoke to everybody. And everyone had the same opinion as me, that they're fed up. Because the one thing Nigel said that I listened to for in that 5 minutes was, okay, now we've got people in the party and the party's grown. What we now want is to bring people into the party that have spent their lives in politics. Well, unfortunately, Nigel, the people that have spent their lives in politics are the ones that have ruined this country. So what you mean is you're inviting all your friends over from Conservative so that they still get to keep on the payroll. And that, to me, is unacceptable. You need people in politics and who are running this country, who have spent their lives knowing what it really means like to run a country and what the country wants and needs. You don't need people who have just lined their pockets and, took backhanders and got businesses set up in their wives' names where they profit from that. I find that unacceptable. And when you look at the likes of Rupert Lowe, who actually gives his wage every month to charity, as being an MP.
Because he don't need it, does he?
Yeah, he doesn't need it, but Nigel doesn't need it either. But I bet he doesn't donate a penny of his. So that really bothered me. And I think, so when he said, we want to bring over people, that's what bothered me. And that was I already knew I was leaving. But when I was speaking to people in the bar, what they were saying was, we're all grassroots. That was the beauty of Reform. It was people that are working men, had businesses. They could be rich, they could be poor, they could be young, old, had a great education, not had a great education. Myself, I'm not the most articulate and I'm definitely not the most intelligent, but I'm passionate about this country. So I think
in politics that's what matters most.
That's what
you
stands.
You have to be passionate for the people. And
yeah, you
for
do.
The country.
100%.
And also for me, I feel like the last year it was either Labour or Reform. But now I'm starting to think, on the right wing, Advance are coming in. Advance are slowly gaining the popularity.
Yeah.
On the left wing, Green Party are slowly gaining the popularity.
Oh, God.
No, I couldn't. So I'm thinking, in the next general election, is it going to be Reform Labour? Is it going to be Conservative Labour? Or is it going to be Advance and Green Party? What do you think it'll be?
I think whatever it is, it's going to be a right-wing party that will ultimately get in. Whether it's Advance or not, I really do believe that Advance do stand a really good chance of getting in. Because if you look at their members, what they've climbed to in something like 3 months, I think they're on around about 40,000 members.
Yeah, it's a big, just...
Yeah, they've shot up. And I think it took Reform something like 4 years to get 30,000 members. So I think that speaks volumes. Yeah. And what you've got to see is because Tommy has endorsed them, because Tommy has supported Advance, straight away, well, then you've got the Tommy vote, which we know is millions. And we all know as well, I know people that go, oh yeah, I'm going to vote Advance. I was like, have you signed up? Well, no, I'm not going to become a member. Because you don't need to become a member to vote for them. It just gives a good stat, on paper. So I do believe there's a lot more supporters than is on paper.
In Advance, what actually is your role within Advance? Because I genuinely don't know. Are you going to run as an MP, councillor, or are you going to be higher up in the behind the scenes?
At the moment, actually, not just at the moment, I will never become a councillor. It's not something I want to do.
I feel like myself, you're too strong, you're too...
I'd be wasted. Yeah, I'm more of, I've seen myself more as an activist recently. Yeah. If there was a position for an MP, yes, I would take that. Purely because when you're an MP, you have a lot bigger say on what goes on. And you can really push the boundaries if you are patriotic. Yeah. Because people that are MPs, they just kind of go, well, I've got the job. I'll do as little as I possibly can. And I will take backhanders and I will do this and I will do that. And I'll buy... a hotel that I'm going to rent out to undocumented men to this government, which is a conflict of interest. And we do know that there are MPs that have done that. So I believe if there was a position for an MP, yes, I would take it. And yes, or at least I'd stand. And I believe that Ben would allow me to stand. He thinks that I've got a good career in politics if I want it. So at the moment with Advance, I will be going up and down the country and being a guest speaker at their events.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and since I've been doing this, obviously I spoke at Tommy's stage. The more I speak, you see me speaking.
About that in a minute because...
But you see me speaking at Epping quite often. I've spoke at different events and I feel that people kind of warm to me. It's not me being big-headed. They do. I get good feedback. People know that I'm a normal person. I'm from a working class background, but I care and people see that. So that's what people buy into. They've gone, you know what? Finally, we've got someone who actually cares about the people.
Yes.
And that means more than anything.
So, you mentioned Ben Habib.
Yes.
What, as a person, is Ben Habib like? Is Ben Habib patriotic? Is he more patriotic than Nigel? Do you feel Ben Habib is more cares and more passionate about the country than Nigel is? And do you think Ben Habib is the only leader that is strong enough to lead Britain into the way that we want it to go?
Do you know what? He just cares about people so much. So he is incredibly patriotic. And do you know what as well? When I met him, and even before I'd met him and I'd spoken to him on the phone and he'd sent voice notes, he always checked to see how I was. So it wasn't an act. Everything was very sincere. And he's an incredibly nice guy. He really, really is patriotic to this country. And he's got a deep sense of passion for everyone in it and for everyone to live in a safe, fair and secure country. And I believe that he will go through with what he says. He will. I believe that any policy that's put into place, any legislation, he will make sure that they're followed through. And the reason for him building the council as well, the Advanced Council, the people that are in that are amazing. There's no egos in there. When I write, I'm proud to be part of the Advanced family. It's honest because they have all been so welcoming. They can't help you enough. And that's why as well, I think they are very careful of who they're going to let in, because it's not about, what position you've held. It's, are you a decent person? Do you really care? And that's what matters ultimately. So yeah, Ben Habib is definitely, and I would love to see him as the next Prime Minister.
Yeah. So I'm gonna one last question on party politics.
Yeah.
So just to move on after that. So I'm gonna move on a little bit to your arrest. So obviously you was arrested for I'm gonna play the clip probably.
Yeah.
You was arrested for raising the flag over the council offices
Yeah.
or the civic offices, whatever you want to call it. And they brutally arrested you. And after your arrest, they said, "Oh, we'll release you down the road." So do you want to tell us more about that quickly?
Yeah, so obviously you was there, Reggie.
Yes.
And
I was on the stairs.
Yeah, one thing I've got to say before I go on to this, that moment I got arrested, all I could hear was someone shouting, "She's a woman," right? And I thought, that's Reggie. And then as I looked up, as my head was being pushed down and I had my hands up my back, I looked and I could see you. And in that moment, Reg, you made me think this country is not lost.
Yeah.
Because if there are young men like you, be very proud of yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, that is a moment that I will remember forever.
So yeah, they said they're going to release you down the road.
Yes.
So what actually happened when they said they were?
So after the arrest, obviously you see that, and then I was in the back of the van, and as I'm in the back of the van, all hell erupted because obviously, I've been someone to be a bit of a peacemaker.
Yeah, you're
week in, week out, and I think that's why everyone was so annoyed because they're like, "Hold on, you're arresting the one person that keeps everything in line," and I'm in the back of the van. Then I could hear Callum was being arrested as well.
I don't even
from
know
nowhere. He didn't do anything because I've watched
crazy.
the videos and he was just standing there.
He was just standing there with a megaphone holding his little sign.
Took him and then they leant into the van and said, the female in the back of the van, you are to drive her down the road and de-arrest her. So
and then you had to disperse, I'm guessing, when they said that.
So what they done is we drove down the road, pulled up into petrol garage. It was on the way to Harlow. And we're sitting there, basically it's in the middle of nowhere. Opened up the back of the van, took the cuffs off, give me a bottle of water, just chatting, normal stuff. They actually were two nice guys.
Yeah.
One of them said to me, "I can't believe you're actually the nicest person we've ever had in the back of this van." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm actually a nice person." And then we're standing there like for about 10 minutes chatting away, and then all of a sudden he went, "I'm really sorry, just had over the radio, you're going to Grays." And I went, "What?"
And you just mentioned you was going to Grays. I can't remember if you remember or not, but there was about 10, 15, 20 people that went to Harlow police station.
I did hear.
Did a flash protest. I was there filming it. And they was all shouting, Sarah, free Callum. The funniest thing is, none of you were even in Harlow using Grays. And it was just so devastating when you heard you was in Grays.
Yeah, I know.
But obviously, they kept you for the whole... How long did they keep you in
24 hours.
But they kept you for the maximum time they could.
Yeah.
Do you feel like when they arrested you and Callum, they was going for the people... I wouldn't call you organisers, but I'm going to call you the main core of the protest. Do you think they're trying to go for the main core of the protest and give them restrictions for the protests?
I think there was a few different maybe issues relating to our arrest. One of them being that I'd heavily criticised Holly Whitbread in front of the mainstream media 2 weeks prior. Now, as a counsellor, if she can't take a little bit of heated criticism, she shouldn't be doing her job. We already know she's incapable of doing her job because otherwise that hotel wouldn't be there in Epping. And we wouldn't have then had these problems and that young girl wouldn't have been sexually assaulted.
Yeah. And the fact she had the decency to turn up when we heard that the hotel was going to close, which just absolutely collapsed at the end of it. The fact that she had the decency to turn up and almost take the pride from the media was really disgraceful because she wasn't at a single protest and it was the people of Epping that were the ones that sparked up everything. And we're going to go back to the first couple of protests. Was you there at the first protest, the first one?
I was at the second one.
Second, okay, we'll talk about the second then. Because police escorted, stand up to racism hooligans and Antifa into the crowd. What did they expect? And then the next morning you see far-right hooligans attack stand up to racism, far-right thugs attack hotel. What did they actually really expect when they bring in stand up to racism to about 600 people? What did they really expect? Do you feel these stand up to racism are just there to antagonise and cause disruption?
100%. That's it. At the end of the day, they are there. They don't even know actually why they're there.
Do you think they really stand up to racism at the end of the day?
Definitely not. When you look at that group of people, when do you ever see anyone that's from a multicultural background? If people say Asian, black, I don't know, Eastern European, you don't see anybody in that crowd that is from a different background other than white. And what I find is...
That's true. Based and Bougie exposed that.
Yeah. You know, Based and Bougie is a great...
She's a great person.
Yeah, she's a great person. And I'm glad that she uses her platform to go out and expose these people. And when she calls them out on it, they haven't got a thing to say back. They don't know why they're really there. Yeah. And she said to them, you know, I feel intimidated by you lot. I don't feel intimidated by the people over there. I remember at
Hamlet Stamps racing process, she went there, she was getting heckled by someone. She walked over to the far right group and they was like, oh no, you seem like a reasonable, decent person. We would never attack you. You're actually perfect.
Yeah.
And then she went over there, tried speaking to him, saying that happened. They was walking away, saying, no, we don't want to speak to you. You're part of a cult, one of them said.
Yeah.
And that sounds racist to me. That's something that sounds racist to me, because if it was one of the far right lot that said that, then straight away be labelled as a Nazi, a racist, a fascist. And it's not fair. And talking about stand up to racism, we're going to move on to social media trolls. And there's a little special mention for somebody, Zombie Pop. Little Zombie Pop, he'll be buzzing.
Zombie Pop right now will be like, oh my God, they're in a room together on their own. They've got cameras. What are they doing?
That literally.
But I believe Zombie Pop is just deflecting from either his or her real nature. Because I think, you know, when someone carries on talking about something, it's, you know, the lady does protest. So I think Zombie Pop is actually a child groomer. And so, you know, we'll just leave that one there.
Yes. I forgot to ask you one question quickly. We're going to just go back to arrest quickly.
Yeah.
When you was arrested, after your arrest, how did Reform treat you? How did did they ever help you with anything? Help you with any lawyers? Help you with any law help? Anything?
Reform didn't get in touch with me. From the moment of my arrest, I never heard from Reform again. So I knew that, listen, basically, when you're being told, take down that Tommy Robinson post or you'll be dropped from the party, we all know that Nigel's got this weird obsession of not liking Tommy Robinson. So, and then I knew the moment I was asked to speak at Tommy Robinson's rally on the 13th, I knew I'd signed my death warrant. So I knew that Reform was never going to have me back. But, you know, this is bigger than Reform. What's going on in this country is bigger than Reform. And if you really care about this country, then you will acknowledge that and you will see that. So, yeah, I knew that they was going to drop me. However, they didn't know how to, because the optics doesn't look good, does it? When I've gained such traction and got such a big following now in such a short space of time, if they all of a sudden go, yeah, we're not keeping Sarah on board anymore, she's not part of the party, what would that do? What would the headlines be? So I believe in the background, they was really hoping that I was never going to win my seat in the next election, because ultimately it was in Chigwell. And let's face it, I do not suit the demographics of Chigwell. There are certain areas, and I did.
Chigwell's more of like an elderly.
It's what you've got to think is with Chigwell, it's incredibly conservative. It has been forever.
Essex mainly is a massive conservative hold.
But with Chigwell as well, what they want there is someone to represent them that is, say, either a doctor or a head teacher.
Someone who's got
and
like amazing qualifications.
And also from probably an Asian background. Because there's a high Asian
the people
population.
That have got the highest education are the ones that never really care about the people. They're more they more care about what goes in their pocket.
Yes.
At the end of the day, I feel like at the end of the day, this country needs to be run by people who have built their own familiarity, like you have.
Yeah.
Built your own populate. I don't know how to say the word. You know what I mean. You've built your own
population.
Yeah.
Population?
I don't know, it's something like that.
We'll cut that bit, Rich.
I will leave it in. You've built your own fame up. There we go. That's the word. And you're someone who I feel like could run not a country but a constituency very well. And I feel like you'll be one who's in that constituency every day, caring for the people, checking up on the elderly, making sure their NHS waiting lists are just cut straight away and they're being seen first. Do you feel party politics is changing from the two-party system just to more parties coming in now? I feel like Advance as well. I feel like Advance will do very good in the next election. Do you feel that there's a two-party system and do you feel like there's more parties coming along? Do you think Advance will do amazing in the next election?
I think so, yeah. I do.
The only thing, personally, I don't want to happen is when Advance come along and you've got Reform, I don't want them to battle, split the vote, let a left-wing party like the Green Party just go straight in, control the government. I think that'd be one of the worst things to do. What I'd absolutely love is on the right wing, not really conservative, Reform, UKIP, Advance, all come together, choose one leader and be a strong party and make their way to government. I think that'd be perfect. Do you think that would do well or not?
Do you know what? In an ideal world, we would all come together because surely we all share one goal.
Yeah.
But then egos come out and pockets want to be filled. So unless you've got people there that are really, truly sincere to this country, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. And me and you would both love that. You know, there's a lot of people that would love that. We would love nothing more than everyone to just go, you know what, suck it up, pick straws, who's going to be the leader, and that's it. Get over it. But unfortunately, there's too much in-house fighting. You see it with the MPs of Reform. You know, for them to lose Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe in such a short space of time, that was catastrophic for that party because so many people bought into Ben Habib, so many people bought into Rupert Lowe. Why not embrace everyone and
I feel like the way they treated Rupert Lowe was really, quite frankly, disgusting. They just kicked him off and was like, treated him quite rude, and then he's made Restore Britain. I feel like Restore Britain and Advance will one day come together, personally, myself.
I think so.
I feel like they're already starting it a little bit. They're sharing each other's stuff. I feel like Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib will be an unstoppable force in the 2029 general election.
Definitely.
And I do think Advance one day will take over Reform, personally, myself, just with the way they're speaking to the people and they're showing the people they care for them. Whereas Reform aren't really doing that as much anymore.
No.
I feel like Reform in this local area aren't too bad. I know Jamie McIver. I think he's a nice person.
I like Jamie.
I like him. I think he's a great person. So that's why I've got hope in Reform for people like that in the local area.
Yeah.
But up at top, do I? Not really.
No. And you know what? I just think that people are saying... most people have been really positive about me moving to Advance. You get the odd person that says, yeah, but what about you splitting the vote? What I say to them people is, we've got a long time.
4 years.
Yeah. We've got a hell of a long time. And if in short space of time, in 3 months, Advance has already gained the amount of members it has gained, I don't think there's any issue with them becoming in power in 4 years' time. So I wouldn't worry too much about it right now.
Yeah.
I think as long as we build momentum, we get people at leafleting, we do canvassing. The thing that we're kind of up against is obviously mainstream media, as you know, they're a real issue. And then the other thing is when Ben has been, not been allowed to air on Talk TV and GB News, whether they admit it or not that they've stopped airing him.
I feel they're Reform lovers. I like GB News. I feel like GB News expose the truth.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've got to have more diverse parties inside.
Well, Nigel's got a big say.
They can't just have Reform and Labour just having the debates. They've got to bring in the Green Parties. They've got to bring in Advance. They've got to bring in UKIP's Conservatives, but they don't really. That's literally the only thing I don't really like about GB News. But other than that, I think GB News are great. Alex Armstrong, I like Ben Leo. I think they're all great. Patrick Christie's, he comes down to Epping.
He's great. Good. You know what? And everyone on GB News has been really, really friendly and again really welcoming. And I was on there just was it last week? Last week,
announcing your defection, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I really like being on there. And however, though, if Nigel's got a big say in what goes on in GB News, well, I think really that's a conflict of interest, and then you end up becoming just like mainstream media. Because why do you not want the people to know what's really going on all sides? You shouldn't hide the truth. You should be allowed to let people come on, speak openly. Otherwise, you're controlling the narrative. That's not right.
I agree. Going back to, we're going to go back to Epping quickly. When you was arrested, I think it was later, I think it was the day after or later that night, far left Facebook page, doxed you, released your address, released your full info. Can you take legal action against that, and will you?
I will be taking legal action, yeah. I've already mentioned that I want to take legal action against the police for an unlawful arrest, a brutal arrest, keeping me for an excessive amount of time when they knew I hadn't done anything wrong. and ultimately for doxing me, because the dox originally comes from the police anyway. And that's where something's got to change in this country, because just because you're charged actually doesn't mean you're guilty, because you're charged but pending, you're at investigation. And by saying that you're charged, what I was having on social media was trolls going to me, yeah, well, you've been charged, so you've obviously been found guilty.
I bet they was feeling sick in the stomach when all charges were dropped.
And you go, hold on a minute, get to know the legal system and realise that saying you're charged is just a word. It's a process. And, the punishment is in the process. So I have been punished in a way, them arresting me, how they arrested me, keeping me in the cell, charging me, giving me bail conditions so I'm under watch. I'd already been added to a far right watch list, which I'm never going to be removed from that, let's face it. And then also me having to think that I'm going to court on the 15th of October so what was that? That was quite a long time to constantly, some people could have been really worried about that. That could have played on someone's mental health. Now I've got 3 young children, and then to have my address released, that is directly inciting violence at my very front door, because we all know what the left are like. They're all suffering with a mental illness, and they could turn up at my house.
Yeah, obviously, I was going to say something. You spoke, that was it. You spoke at Tommy Robinson's massive 1 to 3 million people. We don't know. Mainstream media, 110,000.
Yeah,
rubbish.
Yeah, definitely not.
I was there. I was like this, cramped, and then you come and got me into the media and got me backstage. Best moment of my life, that was. How was it getting up in front of, I'd say, millions of people and speaking your mind? How did that feel for you?
It was the best feeling in the world. This year has been the best year of my life, and that was the icing on the cake. And for me to be able to have the opportunity to speak in front of, and I would say 2 million, definitely. When I stood on on that stage and looked out to the crowd, that feeling was just unbelievable. To see that many people just wanting to hear every single word you had to say, because everyone there shares the same beliefs as all of us that was going to speak that day. And, I'd never ever spoken to a crowd before. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. I think the biggest crowd I'd spoken to was probably a couple of hundred people, just because of doing what I've been doing over the last year. But that was unbelievable. And that was as well, because someone said, if you do speak, you'll be dropped from Reform. And like I said earlier, this is bigger than Reform. This is bigger than me. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than anyone. What's going on in our country right now, people need to come together, and they need to be outspoken, and they need to not worry about where it might take them in life or what might happen as a result of speaking out. And ultimately, that's what I done, and I got that opportunity, and wow, it was amazing.
When you was there, I'm going to ask you a question. I've asked so many people this question. For me, my 2 favourite speeches were Valentina Gomez and you. Them two, I feel like the way you just got up in front of that stage, you've never really spoken in front of a big stage like that. You've never done something really big like that. And you got up and you didn't stutter once. You got up and just got up there and did it and got out of the way, which was absolutely amazing. And Valentina Gomez just ripped the stage apart.
Bossed
and just
it.
Absolutely just showed everyone what was happening in America as well and happening here.
Yeah.
What was your favourite speech of that day?
Again, I would have to agree with you with Valentina. Yeah,
I feel like she's a voice for the woman.
Definitely. She comes out.
I see a video of her. She was wearing I think it was a burqa. She went up to a Muslim like a meet-up, and when it was like a stage, she got up on the stage, ripped the burqa off, and then started saying, "I'll never let Sharia law take over my country." And I was like, "Wow, you're powerful."
She bossed it. Yeah.
Do you obviously the media label that march as far right, a far right march? When you was there, do you think the people behind the stage and the people in the crowd were far right?
Definitely not. Definitely not. You can't be far right just because you care about the country. And that's ultimately what it is. We care about the country. And in that crowd was so diverse. It was so multicultural. Are they all far right? Because you can't pick and pick and choose who's far right and who's not? Is it only white middle-aged men that are far right, and now we know that the pink ladies are far right? But are you saying that everyone that's from a multicultural background is far right? And what annoys me with the left, they'll call me a racist, they'll call me far right, they'll call me a Nazi, but they're the very same people that call for death to Jews in the street. Do they understand what a Nazi is?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, what I think is, Hitler was a socialist. These people are walking around with banners that have the Socialist Worker Party. Do they realise that Hitler was a socialist and they're standing up for socialism against capitalism? It just blows my mind. They're right there, as you said there, in Israel, they're saying for the death of Jews, the exact same as Hitler.
Yeah.
I genuinely think they're the Nazis, we're not,
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And when they label us as far right, we don't care. When they label us as racist, we don't care. The real racists are the ones out there that are beating up the black, Asian people on the streets. We're not the racists just for standing up against illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're not. What's your thoughts on mainstream media labelling everyone as far right and labelling these people as hooligans?
I think they should be held accountable for their actions, because ultimately they're inciting violence in our country. Because if you continuously watch mainstream media, you're brainwashed. So you're brainwashed and you actually believe what the liar vision's telling you. You'll sit there and you'll go, they must be racist, they must be Nazis, they must be fascists. And then all of a sudden they look at me and you and everybody else that we stand alongside as racists, fascists, Nazis. The mainstream media are so corrupt, and basically they're in cahoots with Parliament, the police and the judges.
Yeah, 100% BBC are with Labour.
They're all together. They're all in one little pot. They all went to school together. They're all mates. They all hang out.
Probably got bullied at school.
Yeah, and they all push one narrative. Now, like you said, I would call the left racists. I would call the left Nazis. I would call the left fascists.
And when you're on the left, all it is middle-aged, white, higher class people. That's all
It's
it is.
weird.
And it's also the higher class who don't wash.
Do you know? Yeah, they are the great unwashed. I mean, none of them. I mean, anyone who struggles with basic hygiene is suffering with a mental illness.
Yeah.
And what I look at is a group of people that have been brought up by parents that were probably once hippies. So with their hippie lifestyle, they've never disciplined their children, and their children have been allowed to do whatever they want, and they're spoilt little brats. They don't wash, they don't brush their hair, they look like scruff bags, and they spill out a load of nonsense because no one's ever reined in what they're saying. So I find that's the problem. You're looking at a group of, say, middle class white kids that have had mummy and daddy spoiling them, and mummy and daddy have never told them off. That's the issue. That's the real issue. And I just think that they need to get an education, but then the problem is, where they're being educated, they're being indoctrinated. Because we know that schools, colleges and universities...
All you've got to look at is Charlie Kirk, what he done in America.
Yeah.
He's going to these college campuses, and sometimes he had teachers coming up to the mic, and he was asking them, what is a woman? Tell me. And they was like, oh, woman is a social construct of what we associate them with. And it's just like, a woman is a person with XX chromosomes at the end of the day. That's all it is. You're either born a man or a woman. If you believe anything else, you're mentally ill.
Yeah.
That's what I personally think.
If you know...
And Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck for saying what he believed. Freedom of speech in this world is dead at the moment, I personally believe. And I feel like the only country that is starting to gain freedom of speech is Poland and also the USA. They're the only two countries that are having freedom of speech at the moment.
Yeah.
With people getting arrested for X posts, what do you think about this?
Oh, it's ridiculous, but I'm not shocked. You know, we're seeing things too often now. Nothing shocks me in the news. The only thing that would shock me is if they went, we've rallied up a bunch of Palestinian protesters and we've arrested them all, charged them, and we've put them in prison. That would shock. I'd be like, oh my God, actually there's a turning in this country. But it's not. It's always if one of us says some hurty words. And this is, again, the problem with kids that have been brought up in this mamby-pamby lifestyle with their parents who have never told them off, and they've been allowed to say whatever they want. The moment you say anything to them, it's like, oh, you can't say that. But they're allowed to do whatever they want. They're allowed to jump up and down, spit their, dummy out the pram and do what they want. You've been a victim of a lot of abuse from the far left, and it's abuse, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And it baffles me how you can get sent to prison for a tweet.
It's a two-tier justice system. The man, I don't know, I can't remember his name. Do you know his name? The one that sexually assaulted the 14-year-old girl?
Oh.
Hadoush.
Yeah, Hadoush.
Yeah. Like he obviously got 12 months in prison for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Lucy Connolly got 31 months for posting a tweet.
Yes.
3 men have been given a sentence of around 6 years, combined sentence of 6 years for protesting outside the Bell Hotel and maybe doing a little bit of stupid things, punching a police shield. He got a year and 10 months with no previous convictions.
Yes.
That is what I call two-tier. Do you feel there is a two-tier justice system in this country, very first of all? And do you think Hadoush, I think his name was, got a long enough sentence of 12 months? Because I personally think he's out. He's going to be out by Christmas. So, to answer your first question, there is quite clearly a two-tier system in this country. And it is right there under our noses. It's in plain sight. We see it on a daily basis. And when you look at, even if you just compare myself, you look at the arrest that I received and the arrest that Hadoush received. He was told, come on, it's okay, don't worry, everything will be okay. Me, they're saying that my crime was to unfurl the flag. What abuse did you get from the police when you was arrested? What actually happened? Yeah, so I got punched under my jaw. I got multiple bruising down my leg. I had multiple bruising down this arm. I did have bruising on the rest of my body, on my back. So for me to receive that arrest, how can you compare the two? How can you say that he can receive this, but I received that? Now, he received 12 months. If I had been found guilty, if I'd actually gone to court and they'd said, yeah, we are finding you guilty, even though I never done anything wrong, I would have received 12 months. So how can somebody who receives 12 months for sexually assaulting a young girl in the high street, he got 12 months, but I would have got 12 months for unfurling the flag? That is two-tier. That is unacceptable. And then we go on to your second question was, I think I've answered that really, haven't I? Did he? It isn't. It definitely isn't. He should be deported. The end of the day, deported. And I do not care what abuse he's going to receive back in his home country. No. He is disgusting. He's a vile human being. At the end of the day, these people, they know that it's against the law most of the time in their country to commit the crimes that they commit here. So what did they think? They land on British soil and then all of a sudden you can do what you like. You can sexually assault young girls. Well, no, you can't. And I don't care if you get persecuted. I don't care what happens to you. As far as I'm concerned, they need to be detained, processed and deported. We need to protect our shores. And that is it at the end of the day. It's not that difficult. We can manage to do that. Sarah, I'm going to leave that on that. Thank you so much. We've got some flowers for you. Mum's going to bring them in. Let's go grab them. Rich! Oh my God. We've got a lovely boutique of flowers here for you. Oh my God, Reggie. Thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. You know what? You're going to make someone very happy one day. You're what this country needs. Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. That was episode 1, the first episode with the lovely Sarah White. What an amazing podcast that was. Thank you very much. Thanks, Reg.